Welcome to Nava Podcast with Leah Cardenas and Stella Pashos.
Let's explore the true essence of Nava.
Nava embodies the concept of beauty in all its forms. It represents the inner radiance that each woman possesses and the unique qualities that make her truly remarkable.
Our mission is to share the stories of inspiring women who are making their mark in the areas of fashion, health, lifestyle, and family. Our aim is to curate meaningful conversations where the journeys and experiences of our guests can inspire you in your own life.
We started this podcast to create a space where everyone can feel beautiful, inspired, and empowered.
Nava is not just a podcast, it's a celebration of the incredible women who have shaped our lives and the countless others who are yet to share their stories.
We can't wait for you to join us.
Welcome to a delightful episode of Nava Podcast. Today we have the pleasure of sitting down with a truly incredible woman, Sarah, the mastermind behind Baby Cakes. Get ready to indulge your senses as we dive into her inspiring journey from her background as a social worker to her foray into the world of delectable cake creations. Tune into this episode of Nava Podcast and prepare to be captivated by Sarah's remarkable resilience, her unwavering dedication, and her ability to turn a simple cake into a symbol of joy and celebration. Don't miss out on this incredible conversation that will leave you with a renewed appreciation for the power of passion and the artistry of cake making.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nava Podcast. Today we have Sarah Lambie from Baby Cakes. We're very excited to have a chat with her. But before we get started, we're going to do a little bit of a Nava speed dating for everyone out there to get to know Sarah a little better. Sarah, did you want to say hello?
Hello.
Thanks for jumping on. We'll jump into it. All right. Are you ready?
I think so.
We're going to do as many questions as we can in 60 seconds.
Okay.
How do your friends describe you in one word?
Oh, hospitality.
Are you a caller or a texter?
Texter. Avoid calls.
Avoid calls. Okay, noted. Guilty food pleasure. You can't say cake.
It's not anymore because I'm always around it.
How hard are these? You can skip also if you need to. Cheese. That's a good one.
Melted cheese. Yeah.
Favorite country?
Hawaii.
What do you think your most played song is on Spotify?
Ooh, probably like the Wiggles or something because I'm
That's gold.
Paw Patrol.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Mm-hmm. Which movie can you watch time and time again?
Once again, with kids, I watch movies all the time. I like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is random, but yes.
Oh, no. You nailed that. That's good. Thanks for that.
All right. So, Sarah, can you share with us the story behind the founding of Baby Cakes?
Yeah. So Baby Cakes started only a few months ago, so we're pretty new. I say we, it's me, but for some reason it just sounds better saying we because I feel like it's sort of it's taken on a life of its own. The reason behind it was I've got two sons, one of them who turned 2 in January, and at the time I was busy working and I ordered a cake from a cake place. It was quite expensive because I had no idea how to make little cars out of fondant. It just seemed so hard. And we got it and it was, it looked nice. And then we cut into it and it tasted like oil. I can't put it any other way.
Wow.
And spoke to a fair few people who've purchased these cakes from bigger and it's not saying anything against them, but the taste is not there. So it might look good, but it doesn't taste good. And it just got me thinking, I thought that there'd be definitely a market for things that taste as good as they look, especially when you're putting so much time or effort or celebration into something. Yeah, so that kind of just got into my head maybe 5 months ago. Yeah.
And did you used to like making cakes or desserts or sweets before you started Baby Cakes?
Yeah, I've always been a baker. I've always made things. People have told me to do something with it, but I've always been nervous, and I can go a bit more into that in the future, in later. But yeah, they've always told me to do it. I've always been the one who's been designated to bring a dessert or bring some food. And so, yes, I've always been into baking and desserts.
That's awesome, because it's the most natural and organic way for a business to come to fruition is by doing something that you're already kind of good at and then, developing those skills, but you genuinely seem to have loved it from the beginning. So that's really cool.
Can you tell our guests a little bit about what you were doing before you started, you launched Baby Cakes?
Yeah, so I've been a social worker in mental health for like 15 plus years. So that's pretty different from baking cakes. But I think for me, I do still love that sort of, field, but it can be quite heavy and you're dealing with a lot of heavy things. A lot of my clients have schizophrenia and lots of things going on. So I think naturally going into cakes was such a fun way to be a part of celebration and be part of something positive. And I love working with my clients just like I do or did in social work. So it's, but that's been my background.
Yeah. And are you still doing social work in the moment?
A few days, but I've had to pare it back because of the I did not think it would go this way, and literally this only happened 3 months ago, so it's been pretty crazy. But yeah, I pared it back, but I'm still doing some work. Yeah,
that's amazing. So can you just take us back to 5 months ago? How did you kind of come up with the name Baby Cakes? How did you go from moving away a little bit, taking on less days at work for your full-time job and transitioning more into cakes? Give us all the goss.
Yeah, so Baby Cakes is not because it's for babies. That's that sometimes people think. I think the thing that came into my mind with Baby Cakes is the concept of a small cake with writing on it personalized as a gift. And I think I've always been someone who, my girls, my friends, the people who are my bridesmaids, I've always kept really close to and send flowers and things like that. So when I thought about giving a personalized gift of a cake that has writing on it, I'm like, that's such a cool, thoughtful, different gift. And it kind of stemmed from there. And so it started off that a few of my girlfriends, I just thought of amazing things about them, whether it be a boss mum or, one of them's going through some illnesses. So just things like that. And I wrote it on cakes. I just drove it around to my friends. This is 5 months. And got me thinking about it. And then, as I said, the stuff with my son's birthday cake and Mother's Day was coming up. And I'm like, you know what? I might as well just start, because I think that's the biggest thing is starting. Yeah, because you can get in your head and get imposter syndrome and get overwhelmed. So I'm just like, look, I'll just start. It's not perfect, but let me just start this process. And it went pretty much from there. And Mother's Day was my first kind of soft launch. Yeah.
Wow, that's such a short time frame. And you started off, did you start off with a Instagram page? I know you have a website now. Talk us through how that evolved.
Yeah, so I thought Instagram was the easiest way to kind of just get my name out. But I started off with 3 people. I didn't know what to do. I, downloaded, is it Canva and some other, just branding sort of things, which aren't too expensive, and just kind of came up with a logo. And the biggest thing for me was just taking photos of what I do, because if someone's going to book something through you, whether it's a cake or a product, they need to have an element of trust of what they're going to get, especially when they're exchanging money, and especially when it comes to celebrations, because it's a big deal and you want it to be a memorable experience. Well, that's what I look at, what I create, in a good way, not in a bad way. And so for me, I wanted to get my experience up and just take lots of photos of what I was doing. So I hope I'm answering this, and let me know if I've gone too far. But I actually ended up actually making cakes that at the start someone hadn't even ordered, but that I wanted to make for people, so that they saw it and go, oh, that's cool that she made that. And then it just snowballed. So now I don't make those cakes anymore. Every cake I make is for somebody who's ordered it.
Yeah.
But at the start, that's kind of how I went and just took photos on Instagram. That sort of was my word of mouth kind of thing.
Really exciting how quickly you were able to upscale your brand and your business, and interesting how you started tailoring it a little bit more to what your audience wants and needs. Do you feel that the designs have started to evolve? You have a very distinct style, that kind of vintage style, which is so on trend at the moment. Talk us through about that and how you, I guess, put your own touch to it.
Yeah, I noticed it on social media. I think social media is such a tool. It can be such a great thing to use, but it can also consume you. So you've got to be careful. But to see what's out there and what inspires you, I just take screenshots of things. I remember seeing a friend had one of these vintage cakes with these cherries on. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so bloody pretty. Like, they're so pretty. And I thought I could never, ever make anything like that. Anyway, I just started downloading like YouTube videos. It sounds so basic, and trying to understand how they actually get this cake to look the way that a vintage cake looks. And as you start doing elements, I knew how to bake, I knew the basics, but I just kept practicing and practicing, and it went like there was a lot of buttercream, a lot of taste testing, which my husband enjoyed, but like I came up with really good recipes that I knew tasted good, and then I kept refining, I guess, and I love the vintage cakes. They look beautiful. I understand that there's trends, but I also think when it comes to taste, it's always in fashion. Good tasting things never go out of fashion. So I love vintage cakes, and I also love making kids' birthday kind of cakes, like fun, imaginative cakes. And it's kind of because I've put that stuff out there, people will look at it and order it. So it's just naturally kind of gone that way. It's been really organic.
That's awesome. I was going to ask as well, so in a time where everyone just looks at the aesthetics of things, and obviously your cakes are beautiful and we love the vintage designs, and yeah, like Leah said, there's everyone's ordering a vintage cake, I feel, at the moment. So how do you kind of push, or not push, but like make sure that taste is an appeal of your customers? Because people are so centered on what it looks like. Do you find that they still want to make sure that it's an amazing tasting cake?
A good question. I think it can tend to be a bit of an afterthought at times. People just go, oh, it looks good, it will look really fun in photos or whatever, or it could be the look of it. But I think at the end of the day, a cake speaks for itself because people eat it. So just like I said, with my 2-year-old, we cut it open and we're like, the best thing I get is the feedback after they've eat. Like, they'll first see it and go, oh my gosh, but then after it, they'll be like, that was an incredible cake. Like, I made a gluten-free cake the other day and people were just like, that's not gluten-free. And I'm like, no, it definitely. But like, and then it sort of sells itself because then people ask questions because it didn't just look good, it tasted good. And then it sort of just goes that way. So I've had lots of people order who've tasted a cake and seen a cake and then they've come back.
And referrals, that's the way to go, I think. Word of mouth is so powerful. And then that's how you boost up all your reviews and ongoing customers that come back.
And you always remember a good tasting cake. Like when it's incredible, you're like, damn, that cake that Sarah made was like the bomb, and you're going to order it again and tell everyone about it. But yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's very true. You do remember these things.
So you are still doing social work, you're doing baby cakes, you have 2 boys, you're married. How do you balance the demands of running a business and doing all of those things?
It's a good question because making cakes is a lot of mess. Because baking is like, you just can't make cakes without there being mess. It just, especially I've been asked a fair few times to do black vintage, and black buttercream sounds easy, but it is not easy. And I'm finding black buttercream randomly everywhere. It's a real case. I think it's knowing your limits. So for me, I do have 2 kids. So I've got an 11-year-old who lives with me half and half with my ex-partner. And then I've got a 2-year-old who's very much in the terrible, very cute, but terrible too. So very terrible. So I tend to do a lot of my baking at night because that's when the house is quiet. I've got that time to myself. I stagger the weeks of what I do. So I know I need to bake this day. I need to make the buttercream that day. Also just knowing my capacity. So this has been the first couple of weeks I've had to turn people away, which I hate doing for orders. Like, I don't want to say, I'm so sorry, but I can't. But I want to give a product that I put my time and energy and I'm not frazzled into. So to do that, I need to quality control by making sure I don't take on too much. and acknowledging that my family is my priority. I love cakes, but they're my priority. So I want this to be sustainable and I don't want to burn out. So it's, I put a post up today on Instagram that July's completely booked out. And I'm like, oh, should I be doing that? Because I'm turning people away, but I had to be wise. And I think in some ways people look at it and go, wow, she obviously, is decent at what she does as well, instead of just thinking all negative. And people are now booking in for August and September, which is crazy. But that would be my recommendation about balance.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because if your cup isn't full, how are you going to, as a mum, I have a 2-year-old myself, how are you going to care for them and your partner and your marriage? That's so important as well. You don't want your business to overtake those things. So those priorities are so important.
And it would be challenging to say no to orders, like you said. Like, I'm sure you'd love to do them, but it's great that you can draw like a healthy boundary and create that balance. Because I went on your website and I was like, we're recording this in July at the moment, but yeah, I went on your website and I was like, that's amazing. Like, she's booked out. So I definitely saw it in like a really positive way, for sure.
Oh, thank you.
How do you think that your past experience or your current experience as a social worker has influenced your cakes, if at all?
That's a really cool question, because you think of cakes and you think of social work and they're very different things, but they're not, for the reason that it's working with people and making people feel valued. And I know it's like, I remember thinking, oh, it's just cakes, it's not changing the world. But I think when people order a cake, it's usually for a moment or a celebration. And like you said, you remember something that's really momentous. I remember my 30th birthday was a while ago. I'm a little bit older now, but it was a really rough year. I was going through a marriage breakdown. Me and my ex had just broken up, and it was a really emotional time. And we almost canceled my 30th. I'm like, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. And some of my girlfriends just rallied around going, nah, we're going to do it. Come on, Sarah. And I remember a friend of mine, and I'll shout out to her. Her name's Cass, and she does Fig and Salt, which is an incredible cake business. She gave me this cake. I'm going to get emotional. It's just a cake, but it was just so beautiful. And I remember it was like rose water, and it was like petals. And it was so beautiful. It was like tall. And I just remember that was a really hard time, but I remember the celebration and the love in that moment. And that's why I think when it's social work and cakes, it sounds a bit weird, but you're creating moments for people where you're showing love and you're showing care. And that's where I think it gets me, is when, I get pictures of like a little 5-year-old, so happy, and they'll remember their lollipop princess cake, or, it's an honor. But it feels like an honor to me. And that's what's inspired me.
That's beautiful. And I think it's exactly what you said. I can totally see how you would be fulfilling and serving people in the same way in social work. And with this, despite it being, totally different, there actually can be so many similarities in the service that you're offering.
And it's so special what you said, to be involved in those moments. Like, my daughter just turned 2 recently, and we got a special cake made for her. And we have like lasting memories of those photos, and that lovely lady that made the cake is in our, our photo albums, our special moments of our lives. And though you're not there physically, you're there through that creativity that you poured out in that cake.
That's pretty special. Yeah. I still remember the cakes from when I was little, for sure.
The Woman's Weekly cakes. I don't know if your mum ever made those, but they're always cool. Like, the doll cakes. And
yeah.
We remember how they make you feel. You might forget things, but you remember the moments. And I'm doing my first gender reveal cake this weekend. I'm so excited, except I know the gender and the other person doesn't. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a privilege and an honor to be part of these things.
Yeah. And our senses are so important in when we look back and reflect on our lives. Like, you can remember the scent of something or the taste of something. And I love how your main goal is for the cake to taste good.
Yeah.
And then obviously look amazing. But I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Can you also tell us a little bit about your family dynamics and how they've influenced your journey as an entrepreneur, and, really going from idea to baby cakes?
Yeah, I think I touched on it. Like, so I'm in a blended family. I was married for I think about 7 years, and had my now 11-year-old, who's 2 at the time, and then went through a marriage breakdown. Did the single mum kind of situation for a while, and it is rough. I can't say it's not, and I think the resilience that it built in me of not letting things that don't look the way you think they should limit you. I don't know if that makes complete sense, but life does rarely, as I get older, life does not look the way you think it would or should or could. And it's I know it's cliche, but looking at the positives and pivoting. And I think even with baby cakes, it's been really organic. I didn't start it to be busy. I'm a little bit still getting my head around it. But it is what it is, and I love it, and it's just pivoting. And I think my family situation, and now I've got a really lovely husband, and he's a real beautiful support. And I think having family behind you as well, who are supportive and are your cheerleaders, is really important as well. Yeah, so there's many things I've learned along the way, but I think it's when life doesn't look the way you think, it's kind of making the best of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming to you, I guess, making baby cakes a little bit more prominent as opposed to your social work career, has that been a bit scary, maybe pulling back from that and seeing how busy baby cakes is becoming? Do you think there'll be a time where you'll just do baby cakes? I mean, let's hope your current work is not listening right now. But I mean, I guess your dream future, how do you want that balance to be?
It's so weird because I think, as I said, I'm still getting my head around it. Like, this was like 3 months ago where I started this. So I think I don't know where it's going, but I'm loving it. And I'm just sort of letting it kind of unfold. I'm not trying to push something that's not there. I think that's the hard thing also if you start a business and nothing kind of happens, to not get disheartened. I think it's trying to work out what you love and what people want and kind of marry them together. Sometimes people might start a business of what they want, but it might not be what other people do. And so for me, it's trying to see where it unfolds naturally. And when it comes to social work, who knows? I think that's something that will always be part of probably my life, but who knows? I didn't think, if you told me 6 months ago this was happening, I wouldn't believe it.
That's the best.
Funny thing about it. Yeah.
I love it when things grow organically and you kind of just move and lean into them as the opportunities present themselves. I think sometimes when we force things, it's a lot harder, especially when you have a family involved.
Yeah, I think you've got limited energy. So if it's flowing, it's a lot easier. Yeah.
What's your husband's favorite cake?
It's so funny because the cake now always around. So we're like, cake's awesome, but you just become a little bit like
desensitized to it. You're just like, whatever.
Yeah. Like, oh, all right.
Red velvet again.
He loves like the peanut butter and jelly one,
Yum.
which is like split buttermilk cake with a peanut butter Swiss meringue and strawberry compote. Yeah.
That sounds so good.
That sounds so fancy.
We'll be back after a short break. This conversation is sponsored by 39 Degrees.
39 Degrees have created a hot spring experience that you don't need to book, plan, or leave the house for because they know you've already got a full mental load.
When everyone has gone to sleep and the house is quiet, you can draw yourself a bath, step in mineral milky waters, and absorb in the goodness of natural minerals the way cultures have been doing for centuries.
Michelle and Susie created their signature 39 Degrees bath tonic to replicate that moment as soon as you step into a hot spring.
It's all natural derived, vegan friendly, and suitable for all skin types and every single body.
Nava listeners receive a special 15% off with promo code NAVA15. That's NAVA 15.
Now let's get back to our conversation.
How do you incorporate self-care and personal well-being on such a busy schedule?
Yeah, especially if you're making cakes at night and
Yes.
doing all the family things during the day. And I'd
Yeah.
love to know.
I think I'm still on a journey, and I think
Mhm.
it's good to kind of say, like, I haven't nailed it, because it has been, the word would be a whirlwind. I was articulating to a friend the other day that I miss formalized exercise. Like, I used to do a lot more F45 and things just to move your body to feel good, not for any other reason than it just mentally it's good for you. I think because it has been such a whirlwind, something's had to give. And so now for me, hopefully as things start to settle and I know what my capacity is, and as you keep going, you come up with systems to make things
Mhm.
quicker as well, I've noticed, is I think prioritizing definitely exercise. I know once again it's cliche, but you definitely feel it, and I feel it. It's making sure, for example, usually Mondays are a bit of a chill day for me because a lot of cakes get ordered over Thursday, Friday,
Mhm.
Saturday. Yeah. So today is usually a pretty chill day for me where I'll just relax and rest. So they're like non-negotiables.
That's so good. It's really important to put your boundaries in place, because if you burn out, then that throws out your business, throws out your family, it throws out you. It's so important to set those boundaries.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people over my years throw themselves into things, but then they, the priority of their family gets on the back burner. And coming from, I've gone through a marriage breakdown, and it wasn't to do with that, but just it's, such an important thing regarding your relationships and the people in your life. Jobs will come and go, and baby cakes is awesome, but my kids, my family, that they're my priority. And I think you have to keep reminding yourself of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And F45 classes will come back into it eventually.
They keep messaging me like,
we're thinking of you.
I'm sorry, I'm making cake.
What are some of your favorite ways to unwind and recharge? What do you like to do on your Monday off?
I think everyone unwinds differently, because, like, I think we was like, oh, go get a massage, although I love them. Everyone unwinds differently. I've got a really weird, thing that I like to do. Do you want me to tell you?
Yes, please tell us. We like weird things.
Okay, so there's this $2 shop. This sounds so cringy. In Frankston, where everything's $2. It's massive, and it's got all crafty things and just random things. And I'll just walk around the aisle and maybe spend $20, but it's just my time. It's so lame. But I love a bargain if I can find one in that sort of way. Going also in Frankston, there's a beautiful beach that I go to, and I'll go get a coffee and just go for a walk there. It's getting out of the house for me, because obviously when you're cooking and whatnot, you're not outside much. Yeah, so there's some guilty pleasures, definitely. It used to be cake or chocolate, but no.
What's the best thing you picked up from your $2 shop?
Oh, I did a big shop this morning. It's so funny.
I was going to say, it looks like you're looking at your counter that's full of
Yeah. I found such a cute little beanie for Darcy for $2. It's got little pom-poms on either side.
Oh, cute.
This has got the most random things. I don't know where they get their stuff. Oh, and I found this wallpaper stuff, but it's all really cute. Yeah.
Trying to describe it for the listeners that aren't watching.
Paper, and it seemed like a gingham in different colours.
It does look good.
And something with my cakes is I like to take photos, because that's really important. So I'm going to make a backdrop with that.
Oh, nice.
That's actually a really cool idea.
Yes.
Can you share any tips or strategies for people that are in similar circumstances to you, managing a family and running a business, and then also a career as well? What kind of top tips would you give to women in your shoes?
I think getting over being perfect. Because if you wait for perfection, you're never, ever going to give it a crack. And for me, I remember I felt like it's called vulnerability hangover. I Googled it, by Brene Brown. And when you're putting your creativity or your business out, it is scary, because you could feel like people might not want it, or there could be rejection. And so I remember first starting going, oh, what if people don't like it? I'm so glad I pushed past it, because I've learned so much in that, and kind of, as I said, leaned into what I loved and what people were ordering. And so I think don't wait for perfection, because I will never get there. And I think you learn so much through not being perfect as well. Like the mistakes that I've learned, like clients ghosting me with payments or whatever it is, I've then pivoted and learnt things. So it's like, just allow it to unfold, and don't stop yourself from actually putting it out there.
That's great. I feel like you're speaking directly to us because we're just starting out as well. And it is so daunting putting yourself out there, especially when it's a form of creativity, because you put yourself into what you create, and to be rejected is so scary, or to look back and see that it's not perfect or the way that you wanted it to be is, it's really scary and daunting.
Yeah, we're really hard on ourselves. And even though it was a few months ago, I was looking back at the cakes I was making then to now, I'm like, ooh, and but the thing is, you can't start at the top. Like you've got to sort of, I know that things have been quite a whirlwind here, but you would shortcut all the learning that you learn in the going through it. And yeah, I definitely think everything has to start somewhere. Like Apple had to start somewhere. All the big brands started somewhere. And so you can't fast forward that, but you don't want to either, because I've learned so much in my short amount of time. Yeah.
Totally. And so, okay, so we've got not going too hard on ourselves. Everyone's got a different view of perfection. So just get into it. Start when you're not ready. And then it seems like you're a very positive thinker and you reframe a lot of the challenges that have come your way. So that's tip number 2.
Yes.
Have you got any others that you'd like to share?
No, you've succinct that really well. I think it is definitely, like, as I said, I remember at the start, like someone ordering a cake and then they picked it up, and I was really awkward around money. I still am. And so as in people paying me, which obviously they have to, but I find it really difficult, and they ghosted me. And so, but from that, I was upset. But then I learned, okay, like I've got to come up with a system where they have to pay, X amount, or it's done through not just me. And so then I came up with a template and a payment way that they could do it, so I'm not as involved, and they can't book the cake without some payment.
Yeah.
So you learn, and you can't fast forward these things. So, and that could be with anything, not just cakes and not just payments. It could be anything. Yeah.
And how does it inspire your creativity as a designer with these cakes? Obviously, you've got your distinct vintage style, and you talked a little bit about looking at inspiration from social media. What's your distinct little thing that you put into your cakes that's uniquely Sarah?
I think something I've been given feedback, and, if your podcast listeners look at, the baby cakes sort of Instagram, when I do vintage, I've been told I'm really detailed, like with frills and ruffles, and I love putting it is extra, and that's the beauty of vintage cakes. Yes, you can make it simple, and I love them too, but I love the extraness of it. It's just above and beyond, and there's something really fun about that. Yeah.
I love all the layers of colors, and how I think on one of your posts you talked about matching a color of someone's dress. I think that's so special, and that little unique touch that you have. She's going to remember that her cake matched her dress forever.
Yeah, and even that, it wasn't like it was complete matchy, like the same dress as but what it did was someone sent me a photo of what they were wearing, and I kind of incorporated that with the colors, and yeah, it was really fun.
All right, we're going to jump into the next segment, which is fashion, talking a little about fashion. How would you describe, obviously we know that your particular style is around vintage cakes, but how would you describe the overall vibe and aesthetic of baby cakes? And can you share any kind of new trends or cake prediction trends that you're seeing?
I think once again, social media is really good for seeing what's, coming forward. I think Barbie's coming out. So there's going to be the next month. We're in July at the moment, 2023. There's going to be a lot of pinks for that. There's a lot of 90s fashion coming through. Because I think Barbie kind of is that extra sort of pinky sort of thing. I like pinks, and definitely baby cakes have a lot of people order pink from me. And I love doing that, but I also love what was said about that different cake when it came to the dress, where I used like different colors of purple and a whole lot of different colors that just popped. So for me, I with fashion and cakes, it sounds funny that fashion is cakes and cakes is fashion. It's creativity, it's color combination, whether that be, you know, you putting an outfit together or whether you choose three different colors to go on a cake. You're looking at something visually and working out what goes well. I love that challenge. I love going, okay, this goes with this and this doesn't go with that. I don't know if that kind of answers it.
No, I think that definitely does. And I think you've got your distinct niche of the vintage cakes, but you're able to tailor it through color or the intricacy of all that layering. And that's how you can kind of move with the current trends to personalize your unique design. Yeah.
Yeah, I think vintage cakes is interesting because in New York, there's definitely one that I look at and they're fully booked out. In London, there's a few. There's more now coming to Melbourne, but it is something that people are starting to notice. When I first showed my mum what I was making, she's like, huh, that's different. And I get it. And then someone said that my cake looked like a Cinderella dress, like a Disney dress. I'm like, that's the best compliment ever. Like,
Yeah, as in all the ornate details and intricacies. Yeah, I can see that.
yeah, I think, you know, different people might not always get your creativity, and that's okay. I just know what I produce, I love, and people who like it are going to look for that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite cake that you've ever made?
Ooh, I really enjoyed doing that cake, which went with the outfit, because it was like purple. Like when I first saw the color combination, I'm like, how am I going to do this? It was like purple, orange, blue, like, but it just, I don't know, I just worked with the colors and made them, because blue is not blue, there's different shades of blue. And so, you know, I just had so much fun with it, and then seeing it, her holding it, just made me so happy. Yeah, so probably that was my fun. One of the, oh, there's so many, I can't even.
And so many more to come.
I know, yeah, there's a lot.
All right, moving on to practical. So, helping our listeners who are thinking of starting up a business, whether it be in cakes or not. Can you walk through the process of creating and producing your products at Baby Cakes? So, maybe someone's contacted you and they want a cake, whether it be custom or not. What's your process?
At the start, I had no idea. Let me just be honest. It's easier to move when you're already moving. So it's starting. You've got to start because it's easier when it's in momentum. When it came to placing an order, at the start, it was just through Messenger on Instagram. And then I realized that's really hard because you're constantly having to check back and forth. There's a lot of variables in a cake, like flavor, address, where people are wanting it, etc. So I ended up starting, like, I just Googled and found like kind of like an order form. And there's been a few teething errors in that order form. And so I'm probably going to do a Shopify, which I've got ready to go. But because it's been so busy, and I think that's the thing, when you're busy making stuff, it's hard to do the admin side of things.
Yeah.
Which is not my, you know, I'll do admin, but I definitely love the creating the cakes best. But I think it's starting with some sort of form or document. It wasn't expensive. I think it was like $14, you know, a month to start it, and setting it up so that in my head, I'm like, if someone wants a cake, you need to make it simple for them to look at that cake, go, I want that cake, and then place an order and for it to get to them. Otherwise, if you make it too hard, sadly, people will, you know, walk away. So I think that is the first thing, is thinking as a customer or a client as to, if they want something from you, how are they going to get it in an easy way? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think many creatives love admin.
No, it's been really, definitely a learning curve, especially with like learning how to do things online and putting up photos. But that's the other thing. And the other suggestion is taking lots of, if you're selling something, to have good content. So photos, communicating with your audience. Once again, you know, I probably said before, but like, I think it's important for people to get to know who you are behind what you sell. I think people like personality, and well, that's what I want to feel like I can trust someone. So yeah, that's what I try to communicate through my social media too.
Yeah, that's good. And I think the cake is the most important part of any celebration. So people are going to want to trust that you're going to make it taste good, deliver it, and yeah.
And every
Definitely.
part of the process is important. Customer service, the communication with you, the ease of ordering it online. Yeah, it all adds to a happy customer at the end, doesn't it?
Definitely. You want it streamlined.
I think you've kind of answered some of the questions through that through that response in terms of practical challenges and obstacles. So setting up some sort of online store obviously has made that really a lot easier. But do you feel like at least with using social media and Messenger, it helped you to actually start and put yourself out there?
Yeah, I think if I did like a web page from the start, it would have overwhelmed me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's starting off and just sort of going with where it goes. I then decided after a little while, when I was getting more orders, then to put in the order form. I think also acknowledging the things that you're good at and the things that aren't your strengths. Like for me, asking for money and trying to get payment, I can't. Like I feel that's probably what stopped me from ever doing this in the future, like before, is the concept of people paying me scared me a little bit, because I'm like, oh, there's so much expectation, and I don't want to follow people up for money. So recognizing that, and if you have like a web page where they just do it through there, they're not even talking to you, they've looked at it, they know what they want, they know what they're willing to pay for, that's not a conversation you need to be having. Like they then make that decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's really helpful for me, that sort of part was taken care of.
And as a creative and as someone, you were saying that you find it difficult to ask for money. Did you also find it challenging to give yourself a price point and know your worth?
Yes. Oh yeah, it's one of the hardest things. I think also I'm part of this like group on Facebook where they talk about pricing and cakes, and I put up what I make and I put up what I charge, and I'm aware that there's other bakers that charge a lot more. However, because and they were saying that to me, and they were being quite negative, actually going, oh, you're making it unfair for others. And I think what was hard is I'm 3 months in here. So if I rock up and go, here, please buy my tiny cake for $200. When you're starting out, you've got to build credibility and you've got to build, do you know what I mean? Like experience. So I think it's not that you need to cover your costs and work out things like that, like tax, all of that stuff. But at the start, when you're just sort of getting your head around and getting experience, I think it's okay for charging less. And as you go on, you continue to increment your pricing. And that's what I've done in a really sort of gradual way, because I do want them to be accessible. Like I don't want someone to look at them and go, oh, I can't, that's not my heart either. But butter is expensive.
Yeah. And so is your time. Yes.
I don't think we account for that. I think people don't account for their time. And as I said, as you go on doing stuff, you become more efficient and quick. But at the start, when you're just learning and getting experience, I think for me, I wanted to come in at a competitive price for that reason.
What we love to do in our podcast is explore our core values. And so essentially each letter of Nava stands for something. Leah will jump into it, but we want to create a kind of go-to formula for our listeners to take away and easily digest and be able to replicate in their own lives and be inspired by your story. So we'll kick off with navigate.
How did your background in social work influence your approach to making the cake? I know you talked about how they are similar, but in your approach, was there any cross collaboration between those two careers?
The navigation would be the care of people, definitely. Yeah, is placing value and wanting to create a moment where they feel cared for through a cake. And yeah.
It's almost like your core value for your business. I like that.
Yeah, it's like social work and cake, I've just pivoted. Like it's still working with people and placing value on people through whatever you do. Yeah.
Nice.
And the next one is aspire. So you've kind of answered what motivated you to start on your own, which was a natural I guess, inkling of, amazing baking skills. But what kind of goals and ambitions do you have for Baby Cakes from here? I know you're very, you like the organic style and flow that of the direction of the business, but yeah, I'd love to hear any other specific goals you might have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm organic, but also I'm intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Like even just like taking lots of photos or what you have, definitely be organic, but I think you do need to put in, intentional steps. I think I want to get a better website up and running. Like now that I, have a bit of an idea of what my capacity is a little bit at the moment. So I'd like to do that. And I would like to keep exploring different types of cakes as well. Like I'm not just stopping here. Yeah, because that's the beauty of it, is it keeps progressing and changing, and taste never goes out of fashion, but there's lots of different things you can use. And yeah, that would be my goals.
V is for value, and this question is around managing the demands of running a business and taking care of family. And earlier you spoke about keeping Mondays as sacred for yourself, but also you touched on how you've started to streamline maybe processes and things. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. It's like what I said, you create systems for yourself. So a bit of a side thing is I've got ADHD, which means that my brain, can hyper focus on certain things. It's probably why I've learned so much about cakes in the last few months. But it's acknowledging, for me, things like admin are not my strong point. So coming up with systems to make it easy. So for example, I get a sticker when someone places an order, and I pop what people want, and then I put it on the board. And so when I'm looking at the board, I can see straight away rather than having to go back to a message or go back. It's systems like that you just organically come up with that make it simpler for you, because your time is precious, and tweaking it. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah. I don't
It doesn't have to be an overly complex system. Like you're getting a sticker and you're writing on it, and it's easy for you, it works for you. And so we don't need to overcomplicate it at times. I think I probably do overthink, like I need a software or a really distinct step-by-step process, but that's really simple that everyone can do.
Yeah, I think we do complicate things a lot, but I've got I'll print out documents and things. But when it comes to actually making cake, something as simple as a sticker or something could be, just what a game changer is for you. You might be visual, you might not be. So it's working out what's best for you, recognizing what are your strong points but what aren't. And maybe also, as I said, with cake making, there's a lot of mess involved. And so me and my husband talking about possibly outsourcing a cleaner once a fortnight, because financially the business is going well. Just that takes some pressure off. Like obviously I'll still be cleaning a lot, but those sort of things, like looking out and going, okay, what could assist that someone else might be really good at, and then you're creating an income for someone else in some way, and that's their business. So it all kind of flows on. Yeah.
Cool. And then the last one we have is achieve.
Yeah. So what would you say is one of the key milestones that you've had in your very early 3 months? Yeah.
Oh, I think wedding orders kind of floored me, because it is such an important day. I think when I got my first wedding order, it's not like I arrived, but I'm like, oh my God. It's the trust stuff. And as I said, it's an honor to be part of some of these special days, or even the gender reveal. I think for those really cherished moments when people reach out to me and include me, that's when I feel like, yeah, the business that I'm doing has really achieved something that means a lot to them, and it means a lot to me too.
Oh, that's lovely. I just want to end on, I guess, a little bit of a funny note, but we're all starting off coming from humble beginnings. Can you please tell our listeners your most epic fail when it comes to baby cakes?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think.
Or has it just been smooth sailing all the way?
I don't have any fails.
I've almost dropped a cake before, but I haven't. That's
Ooh.
good. I'm just trying to think. I can't say with. I'm sure I have many in baby cakes. I remember though baking some pancakes for my family a little while back, and I was at my brother's house, and I'd made these pancakes and gave it to them, and realized that instead of sugar, I'd put salt, and like I'd liberally put it everywhere, and then they like it was my nephews like spat it out. It was really dramatic. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I mean, I've had lots of baking fails and things like that, but yeah, it's definitely not been smooth sailing at all.
Okay, well, take inspiration for the listeners that if you've had a pancake fail, it doesn't correlate to not being amazing at cakes. So still do the cake business.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming onto the podcast and being so raw and honest and sharing about your journey.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Was there anything else you wanted to tell our listeners before we finish up?
I think the biggest encouragement is to start, just to start. And I know that sounds really basic, but if you're moving and in a momentum sort of movement, you're more likely to just keep going. Yeah, that would be my biggest encouragement to anyone out there.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next time.